The shuttle shook as it passed through the docking clamps. Park held her bag tight against her chest and looked out the small window. Station Orion 7 stretched out before her like a metal moon. Lights blinked across its surface. Ships moved in and out like bees around a hive. This was the Galactic Military Academy. The best soldiers from 100 different worlds trained here. And now, for the first time in history, humans were joining them. Was 22 years old. She had short black hair and calm eyes that rarely showed emotion. Back on Earth, she had been the top student in her marksmanship class. She could hit a target from 800 meters away without breaking a sweat. But here, among aliens who had traveled between stars for thousands of years, she was nothing. Just a human, just a newcomer from a small blue planet. Beside her sat, he was 2 years older than her with broad shoulders and a quiet face. He never talked much but trusted him more than anyone. They had trained together since they were teenagers. He was her partner, her shadow, her backup. When the shuttle doors opened, he stood up first and gave her a small nod. She nodded back. They were ready. The other human cadets followed them out. There were only 12 of them in total, 12 humans to represent all of Earth. Behind them walked Instructor Lee, a 45-year-old veteran with hair and hard eyes. He carried an old rifle on his back. It was a ballistic weapon, the same kind humans had used for centuries. He never went anywhere without it. The docking bay was huge. Had never seen so many different species in one place. Tall creatures with blue skin stood next to short beings covered in fur. Some had 4 arms. Some had no arms at all. They all wore the same uniform of the academy, but their bodies were so different that the uniforms looked strange on each of them. And they were all staring at the humans. Felt the weight of their eyes. Some looked curious, some looked confused, but most of them looked at the humans the way a person might look at an insect that had crawled into their house. Small, strange, unwelcome. A group of tall aliens stood near the entrance to the main hall. Their skin was pale green and their eyes were large and golden. These were had read about them during training. They were one of the oldest species in the Galactic Union. Their technology was advanced. Their military was powerful. And they believed with complete certainty that they were better than everyone else. The one in front was young, maybe the same age as. His name was. She would learn this later, but right now, she only saw the smirk on his face. He whispered something to the alien next to him, a shorter named. They both laughed. Ignored them and kept walking. The human group was led to their quarters. The rooms were small and cold, clearly the worst ones in the building. Did not complain. She unpacked her things in silence, her clothes, her training books, and her weapon. It was a kinetic pistol, standard issue for human soldiers. It was made of dark metal and fit perfectly in her hand. There were no lights on it, no glowing parts, no fancy technology, just a trigger, a barrel, and a magazine full of bullets. She was cleaning it when the door opened. Walked in without asking, followed behind him along with 2 others. They looked around the room with disgust, as if the air itself was dirty. "So these are the humans," said. His voice was smooth and cold. "I expected something more." Stood up from his bed. His hand moved toward his own weapon, but Instructor raised a hand to stop him. "Can we help you?" asked calmly. Did not answer. Instead, he walked over to and looked down at the pistol in her hands. He reached out and took it before she could react. He turned it over in his fingers, studying it like it was a piece of trash. "What is this?" he asked. "A weapon," replied. Laughed, the other laughed with him. "This is not a weapon," said. He pulled out his own sidearm from his belt. It was a plasma caster, long and elegant with a glowing blue core. It hummed with energy. "This is a weapon, what you have. This is a toy, a museum piece." He tossed the pistol back too. She caught it without blinking. "You humans still use explosive powder and metal scraps," added, shaking his head. "How did your species even survive long enough to reach space?" "Luck," another said, "pure luck." They laughed again. said nothing. She put the pistol back on her bed and returned to cleaning it. Her face showed no anger, no shame, no reaction at all. Leaned closer. Do you have nothing to say, human? No defense for your primitive technology? Looked up at him, her eyes were steady and calm. No, she said simply. This seemed to annoy more than any insult could. He straightened up and looked at Instructor. The old man stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Your weapons are jokes, said to him. Your species is a joke, you do not belong here. Did not move. He did not raise his voice. He simply looked at the young the way a wolf might look at a barking dog. The range does not lie, said quietly. We will see who laughs at the end. Stared at him for a long moment. Then he snorted and turned away. Come, he said to his friends. Let us leave these primitives to play with their toys. They left, the door closed behind them. Silence filled the room. Sat back down, his hands shaking with anger. We should have said something, he muttered. We should have. No, interrupted. Words mean nothing here, actions mean everything. Let them mock us, let them laugh. When the time comes we will answer, and they will not laugh then. Finished cleaning her pistol and held it up to the light. It was simple, it was old, it was everything the said it was. But it was also deadly. She had seen what bullets could do. She had seen them tear through metal, through armor, through flesh. Plasma weapons were flashy and bright. They made noise and light and looked impressive. But bullets were different. Bullets were quiet until they hit. Bullets did not warn you. Bullets did not give you time to run. Bullets just killed. She put the pistol in its case and closed her eyes. Tomorrow they would start training. Tomorrow they would face more insults, more laughter, more scorn, but was patient. She had learned patience on the shooting ranges of Earth, waiting for hours for the perfect shot. She could wait a little longer. Across the station in the quarters, told his friends about the pathetic humans and their toy weapons. They drank and laughed and made jokes about primitive species. None of them noticed Commander watching from the doorway. She was older than them, wiser than them, and she had seen enough battles to know one simple truth. The loudest warriors were rarely the most dangerous ones. She looked toward the human quarters and wondered what those quiet soldiers were really capable of. She had a feeling she would find out soon enough. The first week at the academy was hard, not because of the training. The training was tough, and her team could handle it. They had prepared for years. They had run through forests, climbed mountains, and pushed their bodies to the limit. Physical pain was nothing new to them. The hard part was the mockery. Every morning when the humans walked to the training grounds, they followed them with jokes. Every evening when they returned to their quarters, someone had left something outside their door. Sometimes it was trash. Sometimes it was a toy gun made from scrap metal, with a note that said, "For the primitives." Was always at the center of it. He never missed a chance to remind everyone that humans were the weakest species in the academy. He spoke loudly in the mess hall about how Earth was a backwater planet with no real technology. He demonstrated his plasma caster to crowds of admirers, firing it at practice targets while explaining how they had perfected energy weapons centuries ago. Was his shadow, whatever said, repeated, whatever laughed at, laughed louder. The two of them acted like kings, and the other cadets treated them that way. Watched all of this in silence. She ate her meals quietly. She attended her classes without complaint. She practiced in the training rooms late at night when no one else was around. Stayed with her, always nearby, always ready. The other human cadets struggled more. Some of them wanted to fight back. Some of them talked about confronting and his group, but Instructor shut down every suggestion. We are guests here, he reminded them. If we start fights, they will send us home. We lose everything. Is your pride worth more than our future? No one answered. They all knew he was right. But the anger was building, could see it in their eyes, feel it in their clenched fists during training. On the 7th day, something changed. was sitting alone in the mess hall, eating a simple meal of rice and protein. Most aliens ate different food, strange things that glowed or moved on their plates. The human rations looked boring next to them. Another thing for the to mock. She heard footsteps behind her, heavy ones. She did not turn around. Human. It was, of course it was. Took another bite of her food. Yes. Walked around the table and sat across from her. His golden eyes studied her face. Behind him, and a few other gathered to watch. I have been watching you, said. I know, replied. You do not react, you do not get angry, you do not cry or shout or run away. He tilted his head. Why? Put down her spoon. She met his eyes without fear. Because words do not hurt me. Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Perhaps words do not hurt you, but what about actions? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal chip. He placed it on the table between them, recognized it immediately. It was a challenge chip. In the academy, formal challenges were an old tradition. If you accepted a challenge chip, you had to compete against the one who gave it to you. The loser faced whatever penalty the winner chose. Tomorrow is the range qualification test, said loudly. The whole mess hall was listening now. All cadets must show their weapon skills. I challenge you, human. Your species against mine. Your primitive toys against our plasma weapons. Looked at the chip. She did not touch it. And if we lose, she asked. Smile grew wider. If you lose, your team cleans the barracks for a full cycle. All the barracks. Every floor, every room, every toilet. He leaned forward. And you admit publicly that human weapons are inferior, that your species does not belong at this academy. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Other cadets shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. This was not a normal challenge. This was humiliation. Appeared beside, his face was dark with anger. She does not have to accept this, he said. No, she does not, agreed. She can refuse. She can prove that humans are not just primitive but cowards as well. Silence. Looked at the chip for a long moment. She thought about everything that had happened since they arrived. The insults, the laughter, the way the other species looked at them like they were nothing. Then she thought about instructor's words. The range does not lie. She reached out and picked up the chip. Accepted, she said. The mess hall erupted. Aliens whispered to each other in a dozen different languages. Eyes widened for just a moment before his confident smile returned. Bold, he said. Foolish but bold. I will enjoy watching you fail. He stood up and walked away, followed, already laughing. Did you see her face? She actually thinks she can win. Grabbed his arm. What are you doing? He hissed. Their plasma casters are more accurate at long range. Everyone knows that. We cannot beat them in a straight competition. Turned to him. Her eyes were calm as always, but there was something new in them, something cold and sharp. Everyone knows what they have been told, she said. They know plasma weapons are bright and impressive. They know energy technology is advanced, but they do not know what our weapons can really do. They have never seen a bullet hit a target. They have never heard a gunshot. She held up the challenge chip. Tomorrow they will learn. That night did not sleep. She went to the training room and practiced until her hands were sore. She cleaned her pistol 3 times. She checked every bullet in her magazine. Joined her after midnight, bringing extra ammunition and quiet support. Instructor found them just before dawn. He stood in the doorway and watched them for a while. Then he walked over and placed his old rifle on the table. This weapon has been in my family for 3 generations, he said. My grandfather carried it in the last Earth War. My father carried it during the colony rebellions. I carried it when we made first contact with the... He paused. Tomorrow, you will carry it. Stared at the rifle. Sir, I cannot. You can, and you will. Looked at both of them. Tomorrow is not just about winning a competition. Tomorrow is about showing the galaxy who we are, what we are capable of. Every species in this station will be watching. Every commander, every cadet, every officer. What they see tomorrow will shape how they think about humanity for generations." He placed a hand on shoulder. "Do not just win, make them remember." Nodded slowly, she understood. This was not a game. This was not about pride or revenge. This was about proving that humanity belonged among the stars. And she would prove it with fire and metal. Across the station, prepared for the challenge as well. But he did not practice. He did not check his weapon. He simply drank with his friends and planned the celebration for after his victory. He had never lost a shooting competition in his life. He had the best plasma caster money could buy. He had years of training with the finest instructors in the military. What did the humans have? Old weapons, loud noises, primitive technology. He fell asleep with a smile on his face, dreaming of the moment when the humans would bow before him and admit their failure. He did not know that across the station was loading her weapon with armor-piercing rounds, rounds designed to punch through starship hulls, rounds that could crack the hardest shields in the galaxy, rounds that they had never seen before. Morning came slowly, but when it arrived, everything changed. The Academy weapons range was the largest room had ever seen. It stretched out for nearly 2 kilometers, with targets placed at different distances along its length. The walls were made of reinforced metal, designed to absorb the energy from 1,000 different weapons. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into darkness above. Today, that massive room was packed with spectators. Word of the challenge had spread overnight. Every cadet in the academy had come to watch. They filled the observation decks on both sides of the range, pressing against the railings to get a better view. Officers stood in the back, their uniforms decorated with medals and symbols of rank. Even Commander was there, standing alone in the highest observation box with her arms crossed. The atmosphere was electric. Aliens whispered to each other in excited voices. Some had already started betting on the outcome. The odds were not in humanity's favor. Most people expected to win easily. Walked onto the range with beside her. She wore her cadet uniform, clean and simple. Her pistol hung at her hip. Carried instructor's rifle on his back, the old weapon looking out of place among all the glowing alien technology. The crowd grew quiet as they entered. Thousands of eyes turned toward them. Felt the weight of those stares, but she did not let it show on her face. She walked straight to the human position and waited. Arrived a moment later. He was dressed in the finest uniform with golden trim that matched his eyes. His plasma caster gleamed at his side, freshly polished. Behind him walked and 2 other cadets who would compete as part of his team. He looked at the human team and smiled. "I am glad you did not run away in the night," he said. Did not respond. A mechanical voice echoed through the range. It explained the rules of the competition. There would be 3 tests. The first test was static accuracy, where shooters had to hit targets that did not move. The targets would be placed at 100 meters, 300 meters, and 500 meters. Each shooter had 10 shots at each distance. The second test was moving targets. Small drones would fly across the range at high speed. Shooters had to hit as many as possible in 60 seconds. The third test was armor penetration. Special shields would be placed at the end of the range. These shields were made from military-grade composite material, the same kind used on warships. Shooters had to break through the shield to hit the target behind it. Points would be given for each test. The team with the most points would win. "Team, step forward," the mechanical voice commanded. Walked to the firing line with casual confidence. His team spread out beside him. They raised their plasma casters and activated them. The weapons hummed to life, glowing bright blue. Energy crackled along their barrels. The crowd made sounds of appreciation. Static accuracy test, begin. Fired first. A bolt of blue plasma shot from his weapon and streaked toward the first target. It hit the center with a flash of light and heat. The target melted slightly where the plasma touched it. The crowd cheered. Continued firing. Each shot was smooth and practiced. His team fired alongside him, their plasma bolts lighting up the range like a light show. Blue streaks crossed the air, hitting targets with impressive accuracy. At 100 meters, they scored perfectly. At 300 meters, they scored nearly perfectly. One shot from went slightly wide, but it was still a strong performance. At 500 meters, things got harder. Plasma bolts began to spread out at longer distances. The energy dissipated as it traveled through the air. Several shots missed their targets completely, but himself hit the center every time. When the static test ended, the team had scored 87 out of 100 possible points. The crowd cheered loudly. Aliens stomped their feet and clapped their various limbs. Turned to the human position and raised his weapon in a mocking salute. "Your turn," he said. The moving target test was next. They remained on the firing line. Small drones launched from slots in the walls. They moved fast, zigzagging across the range in unpredictable patterns. Plasma bolts chased them through the air. This was where plasma weapons showed their weakness. The bolts traveled fast but not instantly. A trained eye could see them move, and the drones were programmed to detect incoming fire. They dodged and weaved, and many plasma bolts passed through empty air. Still, they performed well, hit 12 drones. His team hit another 30 combined. Their final score for the moving test was 42 out of 60. The crowd's cheering was slightly less enthusiastic. They had expected to do better. Smile flickered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. "The moving test is difficult for everyone," said loudly. "Let us see how the primitives do." Finally came the armor penetration test. This was considered the most important test because in real combat, enemies wore armor. If your weapon could not break through armor, it was useless. The reinforced shields rose from the floor at the end of the range. They were thick and heavy, made from layers of composite material designed to absorb and redirect energy. Behind each shield was a final target. To score points, you had to break through the shield and hit the target. Aimed carefully, he increased his plasma caster's power to maximum. The weapon whined as it charged up. Then he fired. A massive bolt of blue energy slammed into the shield. Light exploded across the range. The crowd gasped at the display. When the light faded, everyone looked at the shield. It was scorched, blackened, smoking. But it was not broken. Fired again, and again. Each shot hit the same spot, trying to burn through, but the composite material absorbed the heat and spread it across the surface. By the end, the shield was covered in burn marks, but it had not cracked. The target behind it remained untouched. His team had the same results. Some of them managed to weaken their shields slightly. One even created a small hole, but none of them scored a clean penetration. They walked away from the firing line with frustrated expressions. Their total score for the armor test was only 15 out of 40 points. Was no longer smiling. His golden eyes were sharp and angry. He had expected this test to be difficult, but he had not expected to fail so completely. Still, his total score was 144 out of 200. That was a strong score. The humans would need to perform almost perfectly to beat him. And everyone knew that was impossible. "Human team," the mechanical voice announced, "step forward." Walked to the firing line. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. The crowd had stopped cheering. They leaned forward, curious to see what the primitives would do. Took his position beside her. He unslung the old rifle from his back and held it ready. Drew her pistol. It did not glow, it did not hum, it did not crackle with energy. It just sat in her hand, small and dark and quiet. Someone in the crowd laughed. "Look at that thing," a voice said. "It looks like a child's toy." More laughter. Ignored them. She raised the pistol and aimed at the first target 100 meters away. She took a breath, let it out slowly. Then she pulled the trigger. The sound was unlike anything the aliens had ever heard. It was not a hum or a whoosh or a crackle. It was a crack, sharp and sudden and violent. It echoed off the metal walls like thunder. Aliens flinched. Some covered their ears. Some ducked as if they expected an explosion. And the target, 100 meters away, had a perfect hole in its center. Fired again and again. Each shot was another crack of thunder. Each shot was another perfect hole. The crowd had stopped laughing. They had stopped moving. They had stopped breathing. They just watched, frozen, as the small human woman with the primitive weapon put bullet after bullet exactly where she wanted them. And somewhere in the highest observation box, Commander leaned forward with new interest in her eyes. The humans had finally begun to show what they could do. The static accuracy test continued, moved through the distances like she was walking through a dream. 100 meters, perfect score. 300 meters, perfect score. 500 meters. At 500 meters, the crowd expected her to struggle. Plasma weapons lost accuracy at that distance because the energy spread out. Surely these primitive kinetic weapons would have the same problem. Raised her pistol, she adjusted her stance slightly, she breathed out. 10 shots, 10 perfect holes in the center of the target. The scoring system displayed the results. Human team static accuracy score, 100 out of 100. Nobody cheered. Nobody moved. The aliens stared at the targets with expressions of disbelief. Had shot alongside. His shots with the old rifle were just as precise. The weapon that instructor's grandfather had carried was still deadly accurate after all these years. His jaw was tight. He stood at the edge of the firing area with his arms crossed, watching every shot. His confidence had cracked, but it had not broken. Not yet. Lucky shooting, muttered. The moving test will be different. Their weapons are too slow. But was wrong. The moving target test began. Drones launched from the walls, their small bodies zigzagging across the range. They had hit 42 targets with their plasma weapons. Surely the humans could not do better. Raised her pistol, raised his rifle. They fired. The crowd did not understand what they were seeing. With plasma weapons, you could follow the bolt with your eyes. You could watch it travel across the range. You could see when it hit and when it missed. With bullets, there was nothing to follow. There was only the crack of the weapon and then, a split second later, a drone exploding in midair. Tracked the drones with smooth, practiced movements. Her eyes never left the targets. Her hands never shook. She fired shot after shot, and drone after drone fell from the sky. The aliens did not understand the physics of what they were seeing. Bullets traveled much faster than plasma bolts. At these ranges, the travel time was almost zero. A drone could not dodge what it could not detect. By the time it sensed the bullet coming, the bullet had already arrived. Was just as fast. The old rifle barked again and again, each shot bringing down another target. When the 60 seconds ended, the range was littered with broken drones. The scoring system calculated the results. Human team moving target score, 58 out of 60. 2 misses, only 2 misses in 60 seconds. Now the crowd reacted, but it was not cheering, it was something else. Gasps, whispers, sounds of shock and fear. The aliens looked at the small human pistol like they were seeing it for the first time. And in a way they were. His face had gone pale, his golden eyes were wide. He looked at with something new in his expression. It was not anger anymore, it was not mockery. It was the beginning of fear. But the final test remained. The armor penetration test. This was where they had hoped to recover. Their plasma weapons had failed to break through the military-grade shields. Surely the human weapons would fail too. Surely kinetic projectiles could not do what energy weapons could not. The reinforced shields rose from the floor, fresh ones, unmarked and solid. Behind each shield was a target. Walked to the firing line. She ejected the magazine from her pistol and pulled a new one from her belt. This magazine was different. The bullets inside were longer and heavier. They were tipped with tungsten, a metal so dense and hard that it could punch through almost anything. Armor-piercing rounds. Loaded similar rounds into the rifle. He worked the bolt with practiced hands, chambering the first round. The crowd watched in silence. Commander leaned even further forward in her observation box. Even she did not know what was about to happen. "Begin," the mechanical voice said. Raised her pistol and aimed at the center of the shield. She did not rush. She did not hesitate. She simply found her target and squeezed the trigger. The crack was louder this time, sharper. It echoed through the range like a thunderclap. And the shield that had stopped plasma bolts from the most advanced weapons in the arsenal. The shield cracked. Not melted, not scorched, cracked. A hole appeared in its center, punched clean through by a small piece of metal traveling faster than the eye could see. Behind the shield, the target had a new hole in it. Clean penetration, perfect hit. The crowd exploded into noise. Aliens shouted in disbelief. Some stood up from their seats. Some fell back in shock. The sound was overwhelming, a mixture of fear and awe and pure confusion. Fired again. Another hole appeared next to the first one, and again, and again. Each bullet punched through the shield like it was made of paper. Raised the old rifle and fired at his own shield. The larger bullet hit with even more force. The shield did not just crack, it shattered. Pieces of composite material flew across the range. When the test ended, the human team had scored 40 out of 40 on armor penetration. Perfect score. The final results appeared on the screens throughout the range. Team total, 144 out of 200. Human team total, 198 out of 200. The numbers hung in the air like a physical weight. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound was the quiet click of reloading her pistol. Stood frozen at the edge of the range. His plasma caster hung forgotten at his side. He stared at the shattered shields with empty eyes. "Impossible," whispered. "That is impossible." But it was not impossible. It had just happened. The entire academy had watched it happen. Commander finally moved. She left her observation box and walked down to the range floor. The crowd parted before her. She stopped in front of and looked at the human woman with new eyes. "That weapon," said slowly. "It uses kinetic energy, no heat, no energy absorption, just force." Nodded, "Yes, Commander." Reached out and placed the pistol in her hand. The commander examined it carefully. She turned it over, looked down the barrel, felt its weight. "It is so simple," murmured. "No power cells, no charging time, no visible projectile, just metal and fire." "Explosive powder," corrected quietly. "Our ancestors invented it 1,000 years ago. We have spent all that time making it better." Handed the pistol back. Then she turned to look at instructor, who stood on the observation deck with his arms still crossed. His expression had not changed throughout the entire test. "Your weapons," called up to him. "They are not flashy, they do not glow or hum, but they are effective." Nodded slowly. Then he spoke, and his voice carried across the silent range. "Our weapons were not designed to impress anyone. They were not designed to look beautiful or make pleasing sounds. They were designed for one purpose only." He paused. "To put holes in things that do not want holes in them, and we have had 10,000 years to perfect that design." He looked at, the young had not moved. "Your plasma weapons are advanced," continued. "Your technology is impressive, but technology is not everything. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. A rock, a blade, a bullet. These things do not need power cells. They do not need charging. They just need someone willing to use them." He turned to leave. Then he stopped and added one final thought. The galaxy has many dangers, many enemies. Some of them will have shields that stop energy weapons. Some of them will have armor that absorbs heat. When that day comes, you may be glad that humanity is on your side, because we learned long ago that there is no armor in the universe that can stop a piece of metal moving fast enough. He walked away. The other human cadets followed him. Was the last to leave. She looked at one more time. His face was blank, empty. Everything he had believed about humanity, about technology, about the galaxy itself, had just been shattered like the shields on the range. She did not say anything. She did not mock him. She did not gloat. She just walked away, her simple weapon hanging at her side. And behind her, the entire academy watched in silence as the primitives left the range. They were not laughing anymore. The morning after the range test, everything was different. Woke early as she always did. She dressed in her uniform and walked to the training grounds for morning exercises. But this time, the corridor was not empty. Cadets from a dozen different species stood along the walls, watching her pass. They did not mock her. They did not whisper insults. They simply watched with quiet respect. Some of them nodded to her. One, a tall being with skin and 4 arms, actually stepped back to let her pass first. It was such a small gesture, but it meant everything. Yesterday, that same being had laughed when called human weapons toys. Today, nobody was laughing. News of the competition had spread across the entire station overnight. Officers who had not attended were reviewing the footage. Instructors were discussing what they had seen. Everyone was talking about the same thing, the humans and their primitive weapons. Met at the training grounds. He looked tired but happy. "Did you see the message boards?" he asked. "Everyone is asking about our guns. They want to know how they work. They want to know if they can try shooting one." Allowed herself a small smile. Maybe they will stop calling them toys now. Instructor joined them a few minutes later. He looked the same as always. Calm, serious, unshakable. "The commander has requested a meeting," he told them. "All human cadets, 1 hour from now." Nodded. She had expected this. What had happened on the range was too big to ignore. The academy leadership would want answers. They would want to understand. The meeting took place in Commander's office. It was a large room with windows that looked out over the stars. Sat behind a metal desk, her pale green skin looking almost silver in the starlight. She watched the humans file in with sharp, calculating eyes. "Sit," she said. They sat. Was silent for a long moment. She studied each of them in turn as if seeing them for the first time. Then she spoke. "I have commanded this academy for 30 years. I have trained soldiers from over 200 different species. I have seen every type of weapon in the galaxy. Energy weapons, plasma casters, laser rifles, nuclear pulse cannons." She paused. "I thought I understood combat. I thought I understood what made a weapon effective." She looked at instructor. "I was wrong." Said nothing. He simply waited for her to continue. "Your kinetic weapons," said. "They operate on principles we abandoned centuries ago. We moved to energy weapons because they seemed more advanced, more powerful, more impressive." She shook her head. "We forgot that war is not about impressiveness. War is about results." She stood up and walked to the window. The galaxy is not as safe as it once was. New threats are emerging on the outer borders. Species that care nothing for treaties or diplomacy. Some of them have developed shields that can stop plasma entirely. Our fleets have struggled against them. She turned back to face the humans. But those shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were not designed to stop kinetic projectiles. Understood what the commander was saying. She felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. "You want us to teach you," said quietly. Nodded. "I want to integrate kinetic weapons training into the academy curriculum. I want every cadet to understand how your weapons work. And I want your species to help design new weapons for our fleets. weapons that combine your kinetic technology with our power systems. Instructor spoke for the first time. That is a large request, Commander. Our weapons technology is one of the few advantages humanity has in the galaxy. I understand, replied, and I am not asking you to give everything away. I am asking for a partnership. Humanity will help the Galactic Union prepare for the threats that are coming. In return, the Union will give humanity full membership, full rights, full respect. She paused. No more jokes about primitives, no more toys, no more museum pieces. Your species will be recognized as equals. The room was silent. Looked at Commander with his unreadable eyes. Finally, the old instructor nodded. We will need to contact Earth. The decision is not mine to make alone. Of course, agreed. Take the time you need, but I hope you will say yes. The galaxy needs what humanity can offer. The meeting ended. The humans walked back to their quarters in thoughtful silence. Later that day, found herself alone in the armory. She was cleaning her pistol as she did every day. The familiar motions calmed her mind. The weight of the weapon in her hands felt right. The door opened. She looked up and saw standing in the entrance. He looked different. The arrogance was gone from his face. His shoulders were hunched. He looked like someone who had lost something important and was still trying to understand what it was. Did not say anything. She waited. Walked slowly into the room. He stopped a few meters away from her, as if he was afraid to come closer. I underestimated you, he said. His voice was quiet, hollow. I thought because your technology looked simple, your species was lesser. I thought because you did not glow or hum, you were weak. Put down her pistol. She met his eyes without anger or triumph. Many species have made that mistake, she said. On our own planet, before we reached the stars, we made war against each other for thousands of years. Each generation thought they were the strongest, the most advanced, the most powerful. She picked up a bullet and held it between her fingers. But the ones who survived were not always the strongest. They were the ones who adapted, the ones who found new ways to solve old problems. She put the bullet down. This weapon is not impressive to look at. It does not glow. It does not make beautiful sounds, but it has kept humanity alive for 10,000 years. It has defended our families, our homes, our world. It is simple because simple things do not break. It is quiet because quiet things are not expected. Looked at the pistol for a long moment. I spent my whole life believing that advanced technology was everything, that the species with the best weapons would always win. Technology helps, agreed. But it is not everything. Courage matters, skill matters, the will to survive matters. She paused. And sometimes the most dangerous things are the ones that look harmless. Was silent, then slowly he nodded. Perhaps, he said carefully, we could train together sometime. I could show you our plasma techniques. You could show me how your kinetic weapons work. Considered this. A week ago she would have refused. A week ago had been her enemy. But things had changed. The challenge was over. The mockery had stopped. And if humanity was going to become part of the Galactic Union, they would need allies. They would need friends. She picked up her pistol and held it out to him. Be careful, she said. The trigger is sensitive. Took the weapon slowly. He held it like it might bite him. He turned it over in his hands, studying every part. It is heavier than I expected, he admitted. Real weapons always are. Outside the armory, the station continued its endless rotation around the stars. Ships came and went. Cadets trained and studied. The galaxy moved forward, carrying all its species with it. And somewhere in the human quarters, Instructor received a message from Earth. The leaders of humanity had reviewed Commander's offer. They had discussed it for hours. They had argued and debated and analyzed. In the end, they said yes. Humanity would share its weapons technology with the Galactic Union. In return, humanity would finally be recognized as equals among the stars. It was a new beginning, a new chapter in the story of the human species. Would later say that it all started with a simple challenge, with too much pride and a human with a quiet gun. But really, it started long before that. It started when the first human picked up a rock and threw it at an enemy. It started when the first human learned to shape metal into a blade. It started when the first human discovered that fire could push a piece of metal faster than the eye could see. 10,000 years of war had made humanity dangerous. And now the galaxy knew it. Humanity had arrived at the Galactic Military Academy as a joke, a primitive species with toy weapons and outdated technology. They left as a lesson that no one would ever forget. The range does not lie, and humanity never bluffs.